Our final speaker today is our Lieutenant Governor, Tate Reeves. He leads the 52-member Senate, but he leads it in a way where he thinks about how do we make Mississippi better. In fact, one of his major focuses has been on making sure we're fiscally responsible. There's no question that what he wanted to do when he started approaching the budget process is to make sure that we were spending the money we were taking in, that we weren't borrowing more than we were taking in. It has worked. As a result of it today, there are no longer cases where we're spending money that we're only getting one time on reoccurring expenses. What a big accomplishment that's been in getting Mississippi's financial house in order. But it's not just that. He's focused on education. He wants to see accountability there. He pushed for making the accountability system rating an A, B, C, D, F system so that everybody could understand exactly where their school system failed. It's a whole lot easier if you look and you say, I'm an A school or I'm an F school. You know exactly where you are and you know how to react to that. That's a result of the hard work he's done. On the business front, he's been just as diligent. He was at the lead in making sure the inventory tax credit was passed. He was at the lead on workers' comp. He was at the lead on several other major issues that have an impact on business because he understands you are the job creators in this state. So please join me in welcoming Lieutenant Governor Tate Reeves.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott, for those kind introductory remarks. It's always a pleasure to host our business leaders, and you are our business leaders across our state here in your state capital. It's also a pleasure for me to be speaking with the two chairmen here, both of whom have done a fantastic job leading their respective committees, the Ways and Means Committee in the House, Chairman Smith, and of course, Senator Fillingane leading the Finance Committee in the Senate. They've worked together to pass good, strong, pro-business legislation. Because the thing that we heard repeatedly, all of us that campaigned in 2011, is one simple thing. Our number one priority, we were told, must be job creation, bringing better and higher paying jobs to our state. But we all share a political philosophy, along with Governor Bryant and Speaker Gunn, a political philosophy which says government does not create jobs. Government's role is to create an environment which encourages those of you in the private sector to invest capital and create jobs. And so every single piece of legislation that's come before my desk in the last 3 years, and by the way, there's been over 9,000 bills filed in the Mississippi legislature in the last 3 years, and they've all come to my desk. So over all 9,000 of them, that's the question that I have asked. If we pass this piece of legislation, is it going to help us create that environment which encourages private sector capital investment? If the answer to that question is yes, well, we work really, really hard to make that bill become a law in this state. If, however, the answer is no, or in some cases I don't know, then we work equally as hard to make sure that bill does not become law of the land in our state until we have some answers to make sure that happens. Some of the things that we've been successful, Scott mentioned the tax breaks to incentivize capital investment, such as the tax break on inventory. Anytime Mississippi has a tax, a cost of doing business that other states do not have, then we are at a competitive disadvantage in two ways. One, we're at a competitive disadvantage when we try to bring business and locate new businesses here, but we're also at a competitive disadvantage when our small businesses and our big businesses around our state, when you are competing for business with a company in another state, in Alabama, in Louisiana, in Arkansas, in Tennessee, that maybe doesn't have that particular cost of doing business, then you are at a competitive disadvantage, and we don't want our businesses in our state to ever be at a competitive disadvantage. It's one of the reasons you've heard me make mention of another tax that I believe very strongly puts us at a competitive disadvantage, and that's the corporate franchise tax. It's a tax that over 40 states in this country do not have. We are one of the states that do, and we're looking at that particular, what I believe to be unfair burden on our job creators around our state, and we're going to continue to do that. We've also passed good, strong legislation on balancing the budget, because we believe very strongly that the foundation of having a good economic development philosophy and a good economic development plan is to have a government that runs like your businesses run. That's why for the first time in 25 years, we have a balanced budget that only spends recurring revenue for recurring expenditures. We have been able to fill up our rainy day fund to our statutory maximum, which is 7.5%, because of course all of us know all too well that when you're geographically located where we are and you have hurricanes and you have tornadoes, there are going to be rainy days, and there are going to be economic disasters, and there are going to be natural disasters that we have to deal with. And because of that, it's prudent, it's fiscally responsible to have sufficient monies in our reserves, and I'm proud to say that we now have that in the state of Mississippi. We also believe that clearly, if we are going to see long-term economic growth in our state, we must improve the overall educational attainment level of our citizens. That's why over the last 3 years, working with Speaker Gunn and his team in the House and with Governor Bryant, we've done a number of positive things as it relates to public education in our state. First thing we've done is we've invested in it. No matter what you might have been told, we will spend this fiscal year over $250 million more on public education this year than we did just 3 years ago. Despite the fact that we had to dig out of a $460 million budget shortfall, the year we came into our leadership positions, the legislature the prior year had spent $460 million of one-time money on recurring expenses. We now spend zero in one-time money on recurring expenses, but even though we've had to dig out of that hole, we're still investing over $250 million more on education in our state today than we did 3 years ago. And we want to continue down that path. In fact, I believe that this year, through this budget process, particularly based upon the positive revenue trends that we saw in November and December and the first 6 months of this fiscal year, I believe when we sine die in about 3 months, unless we can convince everybody to do it tomorrow, which I'd be fine with, but when we sine die in 3 months, I believe we will invest more money in public education under this leadership team than's ever been spent in the history of our state. And I think that's something we ought to be proud of. But we also don't believe that simply spending more money is going to change all of the outcomes for all the kids. You see, I have a fundamental belief about public education, a fundamental belief, and it drives every decision that I make in this building. I believe, and I believe strongly, that it should not matter what a kid's zip code is, nor should it matter what a kid's mom and dad do, or in too many instances don't do for a living. Every kid in Mississippi deserves an opportunity for success. And because of that, and there are an awful lot of school districts in this state where I can look at them and look at their leadership, and I can tell without a doubt that every kid in that district has an opportunity for success. Now, not all of them take advantage of it, and it is what it is. But there are also school districts all around this state where there are very few kids that truly have an opportunity for success. And that's why we've not only invested in public education, that's why we've also worked very hard to reform our public educational system. We've worked to reform it so that we get more money in the classroom. Because the thing we know for sure is the best way for every child to get a quality education is to have a quality teacher in every classroom. That's why over the last 2 years, once we finish this budget year, we will have invested over $100 million more per year just in the last 2 years on raising teacher pay. Now, if you believe that the formula is the end-all be-all of education funding, then what you should know is that $100 million we invested in the classroom in the last 2 years, in the formula, we get zero credit for it. And that's okay, because I'd rather make decisions putting money in the classroom and not get credit for it in the formula, because I know that's what's best for kids. And that's the key to all of our education reform policies, is this. We need more people involved in education that are focused not on what's best for the adults, but those that are focused on what's best for kids. And every decision we've made has been focused on that, whether it be school district consolidation, where we have 7 fewer school districts in Mississippi today than we had just 3 years ago. Now, we're not consolidating them fast enough, but just to put that in perspective, we've consolidated 7, eliminated 7 in the last 3 years, and in the 25 years prior to that, we had consolidated 0. In addition to school district consolidation, we've also worked to give parents more of a choice in their child's education. That's why we worked so hard to get a public charter school bill passed. And that's why we worked so hard to set up a public charter school authorizing board that is chaired by Tommy Carden, who's done a fantastic job on that board, ensuring that only the best operators of public charter schools are allowed a charter, and that only those kids who need it the most are the ones that are getting in to those public charters. We've also done a number of other things on education reform, such as changing the way in which our school districts are rated. It was mentioned by Scott earlier, but just keep this in mind. We passed this particular bill where we now rate schools A, B, C, D, and F. The first year it came out, within 2 weeks, 2 city school districts that received an F, their mayor called a town hall meeting to discuss why their school had received an F. To me, that is in and of itself shows progress, that people care, and when they understand what's really going on in our individual schools, the people will demand improvements. The 3rd grade not reading on a level that is 3rd grade proficient or better. 47%, half. That's not good enough for those kids, because when that kid that's not reading on grade level goes to the 4th and 5th and 6th grade, if they're not reading well, the likelihood they're going to be able to do their math and their science homework in the 4th and 5th grade is relatively low, and the likelihood they're going to become a statistic when they get in the 7th, 8th, and 9th grade is relatively high, and they're going to lead to dropouts, etc. That's why we've instituted the 3rd grade gate. By the way, in the last 3 years, we've spent over $30 million at the Department of Education giving them money to hire reading coaches, because we need more coaches not only helping those students that are most at risk, but also we need more reading coaches that are helping the teachers who are teaching reading become better teachers and do a better job. And so that's something that I'm very proud of, and I know in the long term can make and will make a significant difference. Now, I could sit here, as you can tell, and talk about education reform and our state's need for it for a long time, but I am smart enough as a politician to know that I am between you and lunch. And no matter what I say today, you would rather be at lunch. So this is an election year in our state, and this will be my first time to be serving as lieutenant governor during an election year. What I have found in the first 3 days of the session is that I don't know that I'm going to make it for 90 days this year. It's crazy and wild in this building, but we're honored to have each of you in the building. And my one commitment to you today is the same commitment I made in 2011. It's pretty simple. If you give me the opportunity to serve, my commitment to you is I'm going to make the best decisions I can every single day to do what I think will make Mississippi a better place to build a business and a better place to raise kids. Because I can assure you that no matter what criticism I may receive from people all around this state, there is no greater critic than the one, for me, that looks back at me in the mirror every single morning. And if I can look in that mirror knowing that the day before I did everything I could to make Mississippi a better place, I will be perfectly content with where I am. Because I am my greatest critic. But I also will tell you that if we commit to working together, if we commit to working together to build our state, if we commit to working together to improve the quality of our educational attainment level of our citizens, if we work together to make Mississippi a better place, if we work together to raise the level of expectations, not only for our kids, but for our teachers and our administrators and for our business leaders, I'm convinced that Mississippians will rise up and meet that increased level of expectations. And I'm committed to working together to make that happen, and I hope to be able to work with each and every one of you to accomplish that goal. Thank y'all.
Get a little tired of seeing me when I come to the Capitol. I probably spend as much time visiting with them as I do anybody over here because of what they do. Senator Joey Fillingane is chair of the Senate Finance Committee, which deals with so many issues that impact business. Last year, we had an issue that was very important to the business community and the tax community in Mississippi. And we basically started working at the beginning of the session, and at the end of the session, we had a bill that we passed that everybody felt like accomplished what we needed to do. That was because of the leadership of these two gentlemen, particularly Senator Fillingane, who has what I would call a quiet approach to leadership, making sure we work together, that we find a way to find compromise, and we find a solution that gets us to where we need to be. That's what he allowed us to do last year. That's what allowed us to get that legislation passed. That's what he does in everything he does and the approach he takes to make sure that our business community is protected from a taxing standpoint, to make sure our state is protected from a revenue standpoint. And that's the reason he's been successful in his role. Please welcome Senator Joey Fillingane.
Well, thank you. I know I stand between you and lunch, so I will be extraordinarily brief. I just want to say welcome. You have picked a cold, cold day to be here in your state capital, and we thank you for getting out of bed and driving the distance that you drove to be here with us today and this morning. We look forward to seeing you at lunch here very shortly. I was told 5 minutes, and Jeff and I both decided we were going to try to do ours in about 2, right? So let me just say, again, thank you, welcome. We believe in fewer taxes, fewer regulations on our businesses, more opportunities and more jobs, because that's what we campaign on every 4 years. And you come up here, but you guys and ladies are the ones who actually make that happen out in our districts. You employ our citizens, you employ our family members, you pay the revenues into the coffers that we then fight about here in the halls of the Capitol. And without you and the good work that you do, all of this would be for naught anyway. So I know it's easy to demonize our titans of industry that you represent here this morning, but let me just say, for me personally, I want to thank you for all the good work that you do in employing our good citizens of the state of Mississippi. We are all up for re-election this coming year, so we covet your prayers, your support, and your votes, of course. So if there's anything we can do to help you while you're here looking for the restroom or whatever here in the building, it's under construction, or reconstruction, we should say, so it's a little bit messier, more cumbersome than normal. But to all my friends, especially from my district who are here, and my friends from District 41 in Smith, Covington, Jefferson Davis, Forest, and Lamar counties, I say a special thank you for being here this morning. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my dear friend, Scott, who will introduce some other dear friend, Jeff Smith. And I do bring you greetings on behalf of our Lieutenant Governor, Tate Reeves, who has been a true friend to industry and business and a true conservative in our state. And we thank you for the opportunity to speak briefly this morning.
Thank you so much. And as I said, I have to work together with both these. And Chairman Smith, who is Chairman of Ways and Means, his record of working with businesses goes way back. He was at the point during the Nissan process to make sure Mississippi was putting the types of things in place to allow us to have the ability to attract major companies. He was at the point last year on House Bill 799 to make sure these issues with the tax system were addressed. And there's no question that he is passionate about what he does and he's sincere in his work. Please welcome Representative Jeff Smith.
I appreciate it. I've been here a pretty good while, and some of y'all that know me, I'm a big storyteller. That doesn't mean lies now, that means stories, really. Probably being a politician, I guess I do lie a little bit, but one of my heroes was Winston Churchill, and Winston Churchill said the best words spoken are the fewest words. And he said the best words of all are the old words. And my word to you is I'm proud to be here, proud to work with Scott. He gave Joey and I a lot of credit for House Bill 799. I've never seen a man work as hard as he did on it. It's been a pleasure being able to represent businesses. I love to work with Joey because Joey is such a gentleman and such a friend. But most of all, I'm glad to see y'all here, and I'm glad I'm about to end so you can go eat. Thank y'all.
We talked a lot about the things that we've done in the last 3 years to improve the quality of life in Mississippi, to improve the way in which our people go about building businesses in our state. And really the primary theme is what are we doing to pass legislation to create a better business environment, to encourage private sector capital investment in Mississippi. And we think we've made a lot of progress. We got a lot of work to do.
You mentioned the third grade gate. Give us the idea of what kind of results we've seen, even though it's a relatively new program.
Right, well, it's relatively new, and that it'll just be going into effect towards the end of this school year. But what we're seeing is more and more emphasis placed on literacy, more and more emphasis placed on reading, and we think that's extremely important. When 47% of Mississippi third graders don't read at grade level or better, proficient, we think that's a problem and we got to fix it. It's made a difference in a lot of other states. We think it'll make a big difference here to focus on that in kids in kindergarten through third grade.
It's going to be workforce development. This is the message that all Mississippians need to be talking about. We've done a very good job of recruiting industry and expanding existing industry. Our problem just now is the pressure on the workforce is exceeding the demand, the numbers we have. Demand is exceeding what we're able to produce just now. Now, we're going to put a plan in today and talk about it. We've got a great tech prep program within our high schools, tech masters through MEC. It is going to be our single most important effort during this legislative session is putting our workforce first.
Tell us, what is that going to mean in terms of the momentum that we've seen so far in jobs and economic development in Mississippi?
It just means additional growth. And this starts very early. It starts in pre-K, if you will, to make sure that children are prepared to learn, and our third grade gate so they can read when they go into the fourth grade. And then they graduate from high school. If they want to be in a career program or a college-ready program, they have that opportunity. But it means that we can go around the world and bring more manufacturing and growth here to Mississippi and know that we have the best workforce in the world to do so.
What kind of a competitive environment is there not only throughout the South, but throughout the nation and the world?
Oh, it's very difficult. We're not only competing with Alabama and Texas and Tennessee, we're competing with China now and Vietnam. And so it's a very difficult market to be able to go into and say our workforce is not only affordable, but the best trained in the world. Our community colleges do a great job, and so we're going to make sure we just step it up.
What potential does this offer for Mississippi?
I think it offers Mississippi the potential to be a leader in advanced manufacturing. If you look at, we make the most advanced warships on the planet in Ingalls. We have 120 aerospace industries in the state of Mississippi. Our medical industry is growing every day, and so I think we can move to that new level that I've been talking about for the last 3 years.
Your reaction to MEC's involvement in the legislative process?
We just couldn't do it without them. If you look at the impact they have, particularly on this day, as they come to the Mississippi legislature and tell leaders and members of the Mississippi Senate and House how important business is. We're looking at the franchise tax. If we could slowly do away with that, it would make us more competitive. Again, back to our educational structure, to make sure that we honor young men and women that want to be technicians. You know, we don't want to say everyone must go to a university. If you want to be an honored technician in your high school and in your community college and even in an IHL workforce training program, we want to make sure that you have the opportunity to do that.
Your reaction to everything you've seen here today?
I get very excited. I can't tell you, without this group, without MEC, Mississippi would be failing. We would not have the success without the effort that Mississippi Economic Council has put forward.
Well, I'm here to support businesses, of course. MEC is a fabulous organization. And for us at the Treasurer's Office, one of our big initiatives is TEAM, the Treasurer's Education About Money. So TEAM is a public-private business corporation partnership to reach out about financial literacy, to talk to the high schools, 9th through 12th grade, about financial literacy, financial education. How do they obtain that skill as they get ready for their next step in life?
What kind of response have you seen so far?
Oh, it's been excellent. We're about 80% funded so far for every high school, public, private, and parochial, to have teacher training and to also have a digital web-based system that they can utilize.
Your reaction to the involvement of MEC in the legislative process?
Oh, MEC is a foundation. They look to MEC for good guidance, good basic information, principles that help the legislatures as they go through this process.
Mississippi Economic Council, we're the State Chamber of Commerce. We're we're supported by businesses throughout the state of Mississippi. We're the largest business organization that has a variety of businesses that take part in what we do. And we really focus on issues that are important to them: education, workforce development, economic development, business climate, all of those things that matter.
What are we doing here today?
Today is our annual Capitol Day event. It's a legislative reception event that allows us to bring our members from all over the state of Mississippi down to Jackson. We had a morning session, and then we went to the Capitol and heard from legislative leaders, and now this is our luncheon reception where they just get a chance to visit and catch up with everybody. It's a great way for them to come in from other parts of the state and see their legislator while they're legislators in Jackson.
What are some of the big issues facing business in this legislative session?
I think there's 2 or 3 things. I think workforce development will be at the forefront. I think it's very important that we continue to work to make sure we have the type of workforce development, workforce training programs in place that's going to attract businesses to the state, but more importantly also help our existing businesses grow and expand and add jobs. The more we can do to make sure that we're creating an environment where job creation is number 1, that's the key.
What is the importance of business involvement in the legislative process?
Well, they need to know, the legislative process is like anything else. They need to hear from our business members, and that's what we do. We represent their thoughts to the legislators so that they can understand how important it is that we focus on these issues. It's going to help businesses grow, which ultimately creates those jobs that affect all people in Mississippi.
What does membership in MEC mean to the individual businesses?
Well, I think it means a lot. It gives them the opportunity to be able to be represented at the state capitol. It gives them a voice in what we're doing in Mississippi to improve our economic competitiveness. But it goes just for that. There's so many areas that we focus on. Again, the education side of it, technology, transportation, you name it. It's all part of what's important to make sure we're growing our economy in Mississippi.
Your reaction to everything you've seen and heard here today?
Oh, this is one of my favorite days of the year. I'm a political junkie, so I love Capitol Day, and it's always great to see a crowd like this here taking part and being part of this process, because this shows our legislative leadership that we have a very engaged business community in the state of Mississippi.
If people have questions like more information, what should they do?
They could call us or either go to MEC.ms, that's our website, just MEC.ms. All of our contact information on there. Give us a call. We'd love to talk to you.